Police in Louisville, Kentucky have ordered protesters to disperse after the grand jury brought charges against one of the officers involved in the death of Breonna Taylor in March. She was shot multiple times when police burst into her apartment on an apparent mistaken drugs raid. The officer concerned, who's since been sacked, Brett Hankerson, faces 3 counts of wanton endangerment, not to the life of Miss Taylor, but to the lives of her neighbours because he fired into their dwelling. The reaction? Well, Ben Crump, a civil rights lawyer, has called the grand jury decision outrageous and offensive. Let's hear from Kentucky State Attorney General. He's Daniel Cameron.
After hearing the evidence from our team of prosecutors, the grand jury voted to return an indictment against Detective Hankinson for 3 counts of wanton endangerment for wantonly placing the 3 individuals in apartment 3 in danger of serious physical injury or death. The charge of wanton endangerment in the first degree is a Class D felony, and if found guilty, the accused can serve up to 5 years for each count.
Let's get more on this story and bring in Gloria Brown-Marshall, Professor of Constitutional Law at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. She's a civil rights attorney who litigated cases for Southern Poverty Law Center in Alabama, Community Legal Services in Philadelphia, and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Thank you very much for being with us. Can I get your reaction first and foremost to this finding by the grand jury bringing those charges against that one officer of endangering the neighbours?
Given the fact that Breonna Taylor, 26, was in her bed asleep and her life taken in the middle of the night meant nothing, I was outraged. I still am. I'm sad and unfortunately resigned to a criminal justice system and a system of prosecutors who do not value Black life and have just made it unbearable to be a person of color in this country.
Ben Crump, one of your colleagues, I think I can say, a civil rights lawyer, has called this grand jury decision outrageous and offensive. Would you agree?
I would agree. It's quite offensive. All you have to do is say that in the middle of the night, you hear someone bang your door in. They say police in the hallway, but you're asleep because it's the middle of the night and you're in your own home. It's a carry state, so people can have a weapon to protect themselves. Her boyfriend, with whom she was with at the time, fired toward the door because they thought they were being attacked from the outside. The police then respond with shots, 6 of which killed her, and they say that there is nothing wrong because he shouldn't have fired at them. And if you take that same situation and make Breonna Taylor and her boyfriend white, and you see the repugnance in this decision, that even a Black or conservative prosecutor would let these words come out of his mouth that justice was done, is appalling and, yes, insulting.
So it seems that Breonna Taylor and justice, they are as far apart as ever at this stage.
Very much so. And given the fact that the neighbors in the next apartment are the only victims under law here, we see why we have to have a transformation of our criminal justice system. The sense of this criminal justice system is one that's always been the protection of whites against the sense of a Black victim. It started that way over 400 years ago. It's never been reformed in any real way when it comes to racial justice. And this is yet another case of it, along with George Floyd and thousands of others. Over 1,000 civilians are killed by police every year in this country. And no one seems to think there's anything wrong when it comes to criminal justice administration, especially when that weight falls on the burden and is burdening Black people and other people of color.
As we understand it, Breonna Taylor, a person of good reputation, a medical worker. This was an apparent drugs raid. Nothing was found. So the police certainly have many, many questions to answer on this entire case. Are you expecting any more action to be taken against the other officers?
I was hoping that there would be some action, but it sounds from the Attorney General of Kentucky that this is it. And unfortunately, they don't seem to care that now that this message has been sent, what do you think the response is to be? And they said no protest. They said silent protest. They said manageable protest. So not only are they taking lives in this manner, But then they're turning around and blaming people who have the right to protest, the right to be angry, that what they're doing is un-American to protest the actions of these police officers. The police in the United States are celebrated as heroes no matter what they do. They've been elevated to some type of celebrity status that is unheard of in modern history. And no matter what they do, how many lives they take, this government seems to continue to support them, and other officers refuse to come forward and say that this is horrendous and it's un-American and it's nothing that should be taking place in any democracy, especially one that claims that it is one of the leaders of democracies in the world.
The voice of the free world, indeed, I think is how it's described, and the president described as the leader of the free world by some people, including himself. Putting that to one side, Gloria, can I ask you what your message would be for the people who have turned out on the streets, apparently dispersed by police? I'm reading, I've not seen any images, but what would your message be to protesters who might be thinking of coming out to voice their anger, displeasure at this grand jury decision?
They have the right to be angry. They have the right to protest. They have the right to tell the government, based on the First Amendment of this Constitution that we so praise and export around the world, that they have the right to be free. At this point, they have sent a strong message that people of color are not free, you're unstable, and you're insecure, even in your bed as you sleep. They were looking for a drug dealer who wasn't even living there. They made a mistake, and her life is the price for it. So they have the ability and the right to protest under law. And I would say that we have a lot of work to do to change this country, but we can make change happen. So don't use that anger in vain. Use it in a positive way to make new laws, to bring lawsuits, and to better protect ourselves against a government that refuses to protect us.
Gloria, there was no body cam footage on the police. Maybe that kind of thing could change things in future if police officers are requested by law to wear body cams and provide things like that. What would your message be for Breonna Taylor's family? Clearly, there must be immense anger and disappointment and, of course, continued grief that they're feeling.
I think God be with them and understand that this country has been on this level of cruelty for a very long time. This is not new. It's not the first time. It's been over 400 years of this level of cruelty in this country. I do not know why or how America gained this reputation of being a place of liberty and freedom. It is not for so many people, including people of color. And I would say to her family that my prayers go with them, and that we will continue to protest in her name and in the name of so many others like her who have been the victims of the callousness of racism in this country.
Gloria Brown-Marshall, civil rights attorney, professor of constitutional law at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. Thank you very much for joining us here in France 24. Thank you for sharing your analysis of the development from the Breonna Taylor case, where one officer has been charged with 3 counts of wanton endangerment, not because of the death of Breonna Taylor, but because he fired into the apartment, putting her neighbours in danger. We're watching for all developments from Louisville, Kentucky, where this decision was announced, and of course across the United States.